What's going on, baseball fans? How you doing? So I know we have free agency starting, but you can't forget about the trades. So in this video, I'm going to go over my top 10 trade candidates for this offseason. Let's go talk about it. If you are new to the channel, think about subscribing down below. Hit the like button, the bell button, the share button. Hit all the buttons. At number 10, I have Danny Jansen. Danny Jansen really came on strong this past season as the catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. Look at the year that he had over the 72 games. Yes, not exactly a full season, but very good numbers overall. Hit 260, a 339 on base, a 516 slugging, 15 homers over those 72 games, a 140 WRC plus. But Danny Jansen is one of the better defensive catchers out there, a 4.8 defense last year. However, with the Toronto Blue Jays, you now have Alejandro Kirk. Don't forget about Gabriel Moreno. So in my opinion, Danny Jansen is pretty expendable at this point. I think if you want to have a designated hitter, I think you need to try and work in a left-handed bat somewhere in here. So to me, I think Danny Jansen could absolutely be a trade candidate. Now, taking a look at some teams that could use a catcher. Well, right off the bat, the St. Louis Cardinals. You don't have Yadier Molina anymore. Could you maybe make a trade here for Danny Jansen? Houston, Martin Maldonado, Christian Vasquez is going to be becoming free agents. Maybe Houston could be a good spot. You have some other teams here, maybe Cleveland. You do have Hedges there. Maybe you could use a bit more of an offensive boost. I think that could be a pretty decent fit. But with Danny Jansen, if we take a look at his value here on Baseball Trade Values, the best baseball trade simulator out there, so definitely go take a look here. But Jansen, $26.6 million worth of value. It's definitely going to take you at least one pretty decent prospect, depending on the team, depending on the prospect himself. But it's going to take you at least one pretty good one, probably a couple more as well. But Danny Jansen, I definitely think can be a hot commodity this offseason. At number 9, I have Ramon Laureano. Man, I feel like it's been a minute since we've heard of Ramon Laureano. But Ramon Laureano, yes, he is still around. Remember, he got suspended not too long ago for the PEDs. But ever since then, it feels like he hasn't really been the same. If you take a look at the slash line this past year, only hit 211, a 287 on base, 376 slugging. Did have 13 home runs over the 94 games. That's not too bad. He'll steal some bases as well, 11 stolen bases. And for the most part, he's going to play good defense out there. The defense this past year was in the negatives, a negative 4.8, first time in the negatives in his career. But for the most part, he's always been a pretty solid outfielder. Now, Ramon Laureano, he is still only 28 years old. He's not a free agent until 2026, so he's under a lot of control. However, because of his performance, his value has really dipped. His value at one point, when you considered his age, the contract control, as well as the performance, he did have a pretty high value, anywhere from above $50 million worth in value. But Laureano now, because of performance, it is down now to a $6.6 million value. So he is a lot more affordable now. Now, I think some teams would be willing to jump on that. Now, if we take a look at some teams that could use a boost, let's just say looking at right field, maybe the White Sox want to add, that kind of a dynamic player into their lineup somewhere. You got the Marlins who are looking to just make their team better any way they can. Maybe you could see a team like the Padres maybe jumping on him. You got Jerickson Profar becoming a free agent. Maybe they could turn to him possibly. There are options out there. Maybe the Detroit Tigers, they have an opening out in left field. Maybe you can move some guys around. You got the Astros. You got Michael Brantley. They're going to be having an opening out in the outfield. So there are some teams out there that, maybe even the Mets, if they lose out on Brandon Nimmo, if he ends up going elsewhere, you could maybe turn towards a trade, and he's not going to be very expensive. I definitely think Ramon Laureano, look out for him to definitely be possibly a hot commodity this offseason. At number 8, I have GLEYBER Torres. GLEYBER Torres was a possible trade candidate last offseason. Remember, they traded for Josh Donaldson and IKF. I thought for sure at that point he was going to get traded, ended up staying with the Yankees, and ended up having himself a pretty decent year. Hit 257, had 24 homers, so the power came back in a big way this past year. The slugging was better than it was the previous year at 451, and he played a much better defensive game at second base this year. However, with the Yankees, if we take a look here, at the Yankees. Don't forget about DJ LeMahieu. He was hurt a little bit this past year, but he should be good to go for next year. You could slide, it depends also if you bring Rizzo back. If you bring Rizzo back, you can put LeMahieu back at second, and, depending on, I don't think they're going to go with Gleyber Torres at short. I think that is done. There's no way they're going back to that, but most likely I would think you're going to go with Peraza at short moving forward. So to me, I think Gleyber Torres, it's very possible he could be expendable. And another thing with Gleyber Torres, he's not a free agent until 2025, so teams, I'm sure, will like that he's under contract control. If we take a look at some teams that could use possibly an upgrade at second base, well, I'm taking a look here. You got the White Sox at the bottom down here. They had horrible production offensively at second base. I'm even thinking of a team like the Milwaukee Brewers. Colton Wong could be a free agent if they decide not to pick up that club option. You got some other teams. I don't know. I think there could be a market out here for Gleyber. Taking a look at his value on baseball trade values, as of right now, not very high, only $3 million. That is definitely expendable, but hey, maybe the Yankees, they feel like they want to try and add a reliever, maybe a starting pitcher possibly. I definitely think Gleyber Torres, look out for him. I think there could be a possible trade. At number 7, I have Brandon Woodruff. The Milwaukee Brewers failed to make the playoffs this past year, but Brandon Woodruff was not a reason for that. Had himself another good season, 27 starts, 3.05 ERA, 3.08 FIP, right around 11 strikeouts per 9, 2.5 walks per 9, a home run per 9. Really solid numbers. Brandon Woodruff, once again, having a good season. Well, why would the Brewers want to trade Brandon Woodruff? Well, you got to remember here with the Brewers, they tend not to spend a whole lot of moolah. Yes, they got the big contract with Christian Yelich, but other than that, I mean, they don't really have any big contracts. I mean, Colton Wong, as of right now, is their second highest AAV for this coming year, but that's if they pick up the club option. You got Ashby, Peralta, sure, but they don't usually do these big contracts. Small market team. I'm sure Brandon Woodruff is going to be wanting a lot of money. Now with Brandon Woodruff, he is not a free agent until 2025, so you got 2 more years of control, and when you're a good pitcher and you got control on that contract, your value is going to be way up. If you take a look here, right around $38 million in value for Brandon Woodruff. So it's going to cost you a pretty penny. But hey, teams are looking for starting pitching. The first team that comes to mind, the Texas Rangers. They definitely could use a boost. Maybe the Baltimore Orioles. Maybe they're looking to try and make a push this coming season. They exceeded expectations this past year. Maybe they want to try and add another starting pitcher. I definitely think they could use some starting pitching. The Cubs. Hey, the Cubs, they definitely could use some starting pitching. All teams could use some starting pitching. I'm just naming a few that could really use it. But, will he get traded? I feel like the Brewers most likely will hang on to him. I think they're going to try again this coming year. Again, you have 2 years of control, so maybe you could look towards next offseason. But, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers maybe try to take advantage of that value. At number 6, I have Sean Murphy, another catcher on this list, but Sean Murphy, definitely one of the better catchers out there, another Oakland A as well. I've already talked about why the Oakland A's would want to trade some guys, because they're moving in a different direction. They could be the Las Vegas A's at some point. You never even know what the heck the A's are going to do. But Sean Murphy absolutely is a trade candidate this offseason. One of the better catchers in the game. This year hit 250, a 332 on base, 18 homers, 122 WRC plus. But when it comes to Sean Murphy, it's not just the offense, it's the fantastic defense as well. Plays phenomenal defense behind the plate. Great with the pitchers. Sean Murphy definitely will be a hot commodity. And I've already mentioned a few teams that could be using some catching help. Maybe the St. Louis Cardinals, maybe the Astros, maybe Cleveland. I think Cleveland could be a pretty good spot considering where they have prospects to deal. They have an abundance of prospects to deal. And with Sean Murphy, it's not going to cost you only one prospect. It's going to cost you a little bit. Now, taking a look here at the value, $51.3 million. It's going to cost a lot to get Sean Murphy, but the A's, they could be motivated, especially now that they have Shea Langeliers. I mean, to me, they need to keep trying to load up on prospects. This is the best chance to do it. I definitely think Sean Murphy could be on the move this offseason. At number 5, I have Pablo Lopez. We've been hearing about a Pablo Lopez possible trade now for what feels like forever. The trade deadline this past year, it looked like it was going to happen, that he was going to get moved somewhere. You were hearing the Yankees. You were hearing maybe even the Orioles at one point. Ended up staying with Miami. But I think he has to be on the move this offseason, man. When you take a look at these numbers and the fact that he's a free agent in a couple of years, the Marlins especially trying to add some kind of a bat as well. It just makes all the sense in the world to try and trade Pablo Lopez, especially that you have other young starting pitchers that you could turn to. I think Pablo Lopez is easily the most expendable on that team. Look at the numbers that he had this past year: 180 innings, 32 starts, 3.75 ERA, FIP around the same. Pablo Lopez, you're going to be getting a solid starting pitcher for your rotation. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, teams that could be using some starters, maybe the Cubs, maybe the Orioles, maybe the Yankees could get back in on it. Maybe the Diamondbacks, I forgot to mention them earlier. They definitely could use some starting pitching. Zach Gallen having a breakout year, Merrill Kelly as well. Definitely think the Diamondbacks could jump in. You know, the Red Sox, you know, any team could use starting pitching, but Pablo Lopez, he's going to be a hot commodity this winter. At number 4, I got Shane Bieber. Listen, I'm going to say this right off the bat. If Shane Bieber ends up getting traded this offseason, that would just be amazing. It would be insane. It would just be the world splitting in half. Like, what the heck is going on? Shane Bieber, one of the best starting pitchers in the game, 31 starts this past year, a 2.88 ERA, 2.87 FIP, pitched well in the playoffs. I don't think Shane Bieber is going to end up getting traded, but anything is possible with these small market teams. Shane Bieber, not a free agent now for a couple more years, and it's going to depend on what do the Guardians want to do with him long term. It felt like it was pulling teeth trying to get Jose Ramirez signed up to a contract, and Jose Ramirez ended up taking a bit of a discount there to stay long term. Will Shane Bieber do the same? I don't know. The way these starting pitchers are getting paid these days, I don't know if you're going to want to do that. I don't know, man. I think Shane Bieber wants to hit the market. Now, the Guardians, they definitely could be a good team, so I definitely think they could end up hanging on to him. Remember, it took them all the way up until Francisco Lindor's last year to trade him. We saw all the trade rumors with Jose Ramirez before he ended up signing his contract extension, so I do think it is a little early, but I definitely think we could hear some conversations here for Bieber this winter. And real quick, before I move on to the next candidate, Shane Bieber has a very high trade value, 57.2. I don't know. Teams, they might be scared away by that high price tag. We'll just have to wait and see. But hey, anything's possible. At number 3, I have Corbin Burnes. Here's another guy that I don't think is going to get traded, but anything is possible. Corbin Burnes, if he ends up getting traded, I think the world would just split in half. One of the best starting pitchers in the game not too long ago, winning the Cy Young, 33 starts this past year, 2.94 ERA, 3.14 FIP, almost 11 strikeouts per 9, a home run per 9, 2 walks per 9. One of the best starting pitchers in the game. But now the question is, just like Woodruff, are they going to want to re-sign this guy long term? He's a free agent in 2025. Man, that market in 2025 is going to be really good. My goodness. But Corbin Burnes, he has a couple more years of control. Because of that control, combined with his age, combined with the talent and the numbers that he puts up, obviously a very high value, $78 million worth of value. It's going to take a haul to get him. I've already gone over some teams that could use some starting pitching, but for someone like a Corbin Burnes, you are going to have to, a team that is going to match up with them is going to have to be a team that has good prospects. Right off the bat that comes to mind, the Orioles have a lot of good prospects there. The Dodgers always have good prospects. The Diamondbacks have good prospects. Could they go after someone like a Corbin Burnes? They got great prospects there. Underrated farm system, in my opinion. Maybe, and probably not the Guardians. They have good prospects, but they won't trade for someone like Burnes. But there's a lot of teams that do have some prospects that maybe could make a phone call about Burnes. I do expect him to end up staying. I feel like it's just going to cost too much. I can see Woodruff getting moved more likely than Burnes this offseason. I think if Burnes does get moved, it's going to be next offseason. But hey, anything is possible. At number 2, I have Rafael Devers. My goodness, if the Red Sox trade Rafael Devers, I will cry myself to sleep every single night, just like I did with Mookie Betts a couple of years ago. But it's very possible they could trade him. Why? They have yet to reach an agreement on an extension. He's a free agent after next season, just like Mookie Betts was. He had one more year left until free agency. At least with the Red Sox and Devers, they've been going back and forth on extension talks. While with Betts, they made an offer, but he pretty much just turned it down and said, no, I'm going to go to the market and yada, yada, yada. But with Devers and the Red Sox, they just seem like they're not able to come to terms on something here, and time is ticking. For the Red Sox, to me, if you're not going to sign this guy to an extension, you should probably just try to trade him. I think they should try and trade or sign him to an extension. But if you don't, then to me, I think you got to cash in while his value is still pretty high. As of right now, it's 28.5 million. It's only going to get lower from here. You know, and who knows? He could end up getting hurt this year. I hope not, but it's very possible. It's just how the game is. It's going to really come down to, can the Red Sox get this guy locked up to an extension? If not, I think you got to just move him and bring in prospects while you still can. There are definitely some teams that could use a boost in offense. I mean, I've talked about the Rangers here a bit in this video when it comes to pitching. Who knows? Maybe the Rangers, they want to just keep beefing up that offense any way they can. Maybe a team like the New York Mets, you know, third base. Man, could you imagine Devers with the New York Mets? That'd be absolutely insane. Maybe the Phillies feel like they need an upgrade over Alec Boehm. Maybe you could do something there. Dave Dombrowski, former Ties, likes Rafael Devers a lot. You know, you got the Giants. You know, Evan Longoria, he could end up hitting free agency. Could maybe the Giants bring in a left-handed bat? That would be a great bat at Oracle Park there with the water. There's a lot of possibilities out here for Rafael Devers. In the end, I do hope the Red Sox sign him to an extension. He's 26 years old, and he's already one of the best bats in Major League Baseball. I think you got to find a way to get this done. It would be a shame if you didn't. But if you're not going to, if you're going to stick to your guns and you don't want to sign this guy to a long-term extension, you got to move him. You got to bring in some prospects while you still can. It's going to be a really interesting story this offseason. And at number 1, I have Shohei Ohtani. The trade rumors continue with Shohei Ohtani. It looked like maybe he could have been moved at the deadline, ended up staying with the Angels. But with Ohtani, he's a free agent after this year. Obviously, Ohtani is one of the best players in the game. He is a unicorn. He can pitch. He can hit. He's the modern-day Babe Ruth. This year with the bat, he was really good with the bat, but he was actually better on the mound this year. Last year, it was the opposite. He was way better with the bat, not as effective on the mound, but still really good. Either way, Shohei Ohtani, unbelievable what this guy can do. He will help out any team. I mean, you could list off so many teams that could use his services, but with the Angels and Ohtani, it's interesting because Ohtani, he has said he wants to play for a winner. I think he's kind of just in wait and see mode right now. I think he would like to test the market because the Angels just aren't winning. They're not getting there. They're not making the playoffs. They're not making the right moves. Something is not working in that organization. I don't know. I think Artie Moreno needs to get out of there. I think it all starts at the top. It always trickles down. I don't know. I just think that's a poorly run organization. Sure, Ohtani probably likes the organization, but they're not winning. They're not having success. Ohtani, I definitely think would like to go to a contender. I mean, if you trade him now, right now, his value is at $52 million. You have to consider here, when you're looking at value, you're looking at their performance, you're looking at their age, you're looking at a whole bunch of different things, projections as well. But you're also looking at contract control. So some of you might be thinking, this seems a little low for Ohtani. Yes, sure. I mean, obviously it's Shohei Ohtani, but because of the contract control, because he's a free agent after this year, it's only going to lower his value. Now, a lot of you might be thinking too, well, he just brings in so much marketing. At the end of the day, it comes down to what is the player worth on the field. That's what you're going to be giving up for in terms of prospects. When you look at a player's value, you're not really looking at the marketing value. You're looking at the value of the player, what they're doing on the field. So yes, obviously there's a lot of marketing that gets involved there, but I don't know. With Ohtani, it's going to cost you a lot either way. Obviously, some teams would love to have Shohei Ohtani. I mean, you got just teams all over the place that could use an upgrade both offensively and with the starting pitching. You know, I mentioned the Rangers earlier. Absolutely could use some starting pitching. I mean, and add that bat to that lineup with Seager. My goodness. I mean, that would be amazing. And Semien as well. I mean, what a 1-2-3 punch that would be. And then him going to the top of that rotation. Could the Yankees, if Aaron Judge ends up leaving town, could you bring Shohei Ohtani him to replace him? I mean, my goodness, you can have Stanton in the outfield. Ohtani is your DH. I don't know if they would do a deal with the Dodgers. I don't know about that. Crosstown rivals. Maybe the Padres. There was looking like a possibility the Padres were interested. They could definitely use Ohtani. They could use a DH. They could use a starting pitcher. There's a lot of teams that would love to have Ohtani. My guess is they're going to hang on to Ohtani. I think they're going to try and have a productive offseason. And then maybe at the deadline, if they're out of it at the deadline, they'll reassess there. I think he ends up staying, but you're definitely going to hear the rumors this offseason. You're going to hear the news. You're going to hear all of it with Shohei Ohtani. But I think in the end he ends up staying, but it's going to be really interesting. So that's my list. Tell me some other players down below in the comments. Who else do you think is a trade candidate this offseason? But that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.